right, welcome to The Point, everybody. We've got 3 great points for you today. Katrina Vanden Heuvel, of course, from Nation magazine. She's editor and publisher. She's going to talk about Citizens United and how we can take back control of our political system. Also, Norman Sullivan is going to talk about Wall Street speculation and a financial transaction tax. It's a great idea. I want to discuss that, of course. And then interesting video from a 13-year-old girl named Astrorice about slut shaming. Fascinating. All right, joining me on this panel, we've got James Poulos, who is a columnist with the Daily Caller and a contributor to Ricochet.
Hey,
welcome, James. How are you?
Good.
All right, rock and roll. Jessica Levinson is a law professor at Loyola Law School and a blogger at the Huffington Post. And, of course, Rick Ungar, a contributor for Forbes and Washington Monthly. Welcome, all of you.
Nice to be here.
Good to be here.
All right, great. Well, let's get started. Let's go to Katrina's first point here.
Hi, I'm Katrina Vanden Heuvel, editor and publisher of The Nation magazine. Thank you for having me on your feisty program. My point today is we must take back the funding of our elections from the 1%ers and put the 99% in the saddle. I mean, is it any wonder that on any issue progressives care about, affordable health care, reining in the casino economy, or a fair foreclosure process, we're seeing those reforms diluted, gutted, obstructed. We, the people, not the banks and their lobbyists, need to own the Congress, take back the Congress. We need a system in which candidates rely on the 99%ers, not the 1%ers, for their campaign contributions. That's why you should support the Fair Elections Bill, which has 200 backers in the Congress. And in the abiding belief that we can walk and chew gum at the same time, let's work to overturn the Supreme Court's unprecedented assault on our democracy via their Citizens United decision, which made corporations people and accorded corporations the right to spend unlimited amounts of money from their treasuries on electioneering. The good news? A poll taken by ABC News and the Washington Post showed that 80% of Americans across the political spectrum want to overturn this ruling. So go to unitedforthepeople.org, united4thepeople.org, and join the scores of legislators and organizations and millions of people across this country organizing to overturn Citizens United. Your organizing will ensure that we remain a country of the people, by the people, for the people, and not for the corporations. I'm Katrina Vanden Heuvel, and that's my point. And go to thenation.com to read my blog and find out from many others at The Nation about what you can do to take back your country.
All right, well, Professor Levinson, I'm going to start with you since this is your area of expertise and you've got an article coming out in a law review about this soon. So what's the legal basis for the Citizens United decision and the idea that corporations are people?
Well, I'm going to give you a quick answer, but I'm going to bring you back to 1862 to start the answer.
Rock and roll.
And,
I love that year. Good year.
Good year. So Supreme Court decisions are recorded by a Supreme Court reporter. And in that year, a Supreme Court reporter actually wrote in the notes of a decision about Southern Pacific Railroad that corporations shall be considered people.
Can I stop you there for a second? I have heard, and Tom Hartman's a big advocate of this idea, that guy was, first of all, not on the Supreme Court. Right. Second of all, used to work for the railroad companies.
He did.
So, I mean, this is nonsense. Legally, why are we even following this if it's not a real precedent, if the Supreme Court never actually ruled that way?
Well, it became precedent. He sent a letter to the Chief Justice at the time and said, basically, does this look okay? And the Chief Justice wrote back, sure. So after that became the foundation for our corporate personhood jurisprudence. Having said that, Citizens United does, in my opinion, present a sea change in terms of saying, for the First Amendment, when you're talking about spending money in the political marketplace, that speaker-based identity restrictions are not permissible, by which I mean if a restriction cannot be applied to an individual person, then the court is saying it cannot be applied to a corporation. I think that's erroneous for a number of reasons, one being that just one of the purposes behind the First Amendment is that I should be able to express myself, the so-called self-realization idea. Corporations are, by definition, artificial entities that have no self-realization interests. I think there are a host of issues that we could talk about, but the second part of the Citizens United decision says that spending made independent of candidates cannot corrupt candidates. And that
That's a good one. That's a good one. Like Newt Gingrich, when he got the $5 million from Sheldon Adelson, he's like, what? Sheldon Adelson? Who is that? We happen to have an identical position on, for example, unions in
Everything.
Israel and everything else, but it's just a wild coincidence.
Go figure.
So this has given rise to the super PACs, the independent-only expenditure groups. And as a result, they can raise and spend unlimited sums. As a result of an IRS issue, they mostly don't have to disclose donors. And they can really flood the political marketplace with speech. And I think the public is overwhelmingly hearing from them.
Justice Kennedy in that decision said, oh, no, we'll find out who their donors are anyway. I'm sure they'll disclose that. Yeah, they're on the verge of disclosing it any minute now. Yeah. Look, there's two different tracks that you can give and hence not disclose in one track. But the whole thing's a sham. They bought our entire system.
Now, I'm not allowed to coordinate with Jessica, but as an American citizen, if Jessica happens to be listening as I speak right now, what I might say is it's amazing the support, because if you look at how our founders viewed corporations, they were so far from seeing them as people. The restrictions on corporations at the beginning of this country were huge. They could only exist for a set period of time. They could only own property that was directly related to what they did as a corporation. They were as far from the definition of a person as anybody could imagine. And yet the people who support this are strict constitutionalists.
That's because they're literally a legal fiction. They are not endowed by their creator with inalienable rights. We are their creator, and we gave them limited rights until the Supreme Court or some railroad clerk or executive comes in and goes, no, they now have all of your rights.
The state can revoke their life anytime it wants. Can't do that with a person.
And
unless you're in
arguably,
Texas.
they actually have more benefits. They have limited liability, they have perpetual life. So the day that I can live forever, I think, is a day that is appropriate for the Supreme Court to treat people the same as corporations.
Right, they actually have special rights because you can't sue them like you would a person, you can't imprison them like you would a person, plus they get all of your constitutional rights.
But you can't take away their existence if they don't follow the rules.
It's helpful to remember why it is that we wound up on this track to begin with. I mean, why did corporate personhood persist to this point? Well, because it insulates people from legal liability, and that helps with business. So there is a reason why we're on this track. But it does seem clear that the root of the problem here is people complain about all these outside groups who are having this outsized influence on politics. Well, I don't think it's so much that they're outside groups as that they're inside outside groups. That when you look at who's running these super PACs and who's in charge and who's drawing all this money together, it's guys who are playing both sides of the game. It's guys who are Wall Street guys who become government guys who become Wall Street guys, figures like Karl Rove, you've got them in both parties. That's the source of the problem. And as much as we can argue about whether Citizens United was decided rightly or wrongly, if you take away this decision, the money is going to flow to politics in a free society. As far as power is concentrated in Washington, that's what draws the money.
Okay, but so James, I'm curious, since you're a libertarian, right? I mean, what do you think is the right thing? Right? Do you think that we shouldn't have these rules and let the money flow in and it'll sort itself out? Or do you think, hey, you know what, we can reasonably say we don't want you buying our politicians?
Well, I mean, I think that the way to reasonably say that is by actually organizing and mobilizing as citizens and trying to wrest control over the legislative process back through sort of direct
Okay, but that's what we
participation.
did. We said through the legislative process, corporations are not allowed to give money to politicians, and the Supreme Court came in and said, legislative process, we're going to be activist judges.
And
Well, you have to contend with the Supreme Court. I mean, you do what you can where you can. I think the important point that needs to be made here is, look, there's a world of difference between a candidacy like Gene McCarthy's, where he found his sort of rich friend and said, I want to run for president, and I don't have any money. Can you help me out? And he said, yes. That's good for democracy. What's bad for democracy is when you have this sort of permanent cast of elites who straddle both sides of the game and marshal all these resources in a way that I think, frankly, is just self-discrediting. People know that these super PACs are ridiculous. You got Stephen Colbert on TV making fun of them day in and day out. Everyone knows what the score is. And yeah, they're having an influence, but a lot of this money, frankly, is just being thrown away. Look at this fight between Newt and Mitt. There's a lot of blood on the floor, and what do they have to show for it?
I don't think it's being thrown away at all. I hope they keep doing it.
Well, I mean, look, one of the things that they have to show for it is that Mitt Romney devastated Newt Gingrich with his super PAC ads in Iowa
So was
and
that
knocked
good
him off the pedestal.
Was
and he
that
went
good
from
or bad? Was that something you can point to Citizens United and say, oh, bad decision, bad Supreme Court?
No, but that isn't the problem, James. It's not that, hey, Mitt and Newt are fighting. It's that somebody like the Hollywood, the media industry, comes in and goes, hey, you know what? I'm going to buy both sides. I'm going to buy the Democrats. I'm going to buy the Republicans. We're going to have bipartisan consensus. Who gives a damn that a bill like Stop Online Piracy Act is way too broad and could shut down the entire internet, could shut down Google. I don't care. All I'm going to do is I'm going to buy these guys and I'm going to get what I want.
But it's not working. SOPA's going down.
Well, first of all, it's because the tech guys were like, hey, you know what? We got a lot of money too. And in fact, I think that's part of the reason they did it. Pat Leahy joked around about how it was the Pat Leahy Lobbyist Job Creation Act, right? Because then they said, hey, we're not getting bribed nearly enough by the tech guys. We got to get that industry going. And you know, Rick, you write a lot about healthcare. I mean, you want to talk about this issue, healthcare industry, the pharmaceuticals, et cetera. Nobody buys politicians better than they do. Both sides.
They are by far the masters, and that's kind of it. It is true, they buy both sides, but the difference is, and I liked your Gene McCarthy reference. I wonder how many people watching actually remember Gene McCarthy, but it was good. The difference is the amount of money being spent today to buy both sides, and the perverse impact it has on the system. Look, people may be created equal, but they don't exist equally. And if you give people with the most amount of money the greatest amount of impact over the system, this cannot have a happy ending for anybody.
Well, I think our discussion shows a number of problems. I mean, one, I actually do think it's a problem to be able to say to a wealthy friend, oh, I want to run for president, because someone who's very capable and doesn't have a wealthy friend isn't going to have the same platform. But two, I mean, the super PACs, okay, so even if they do straddle both sides, we're having a discussion about them, and they're overwhelmingly, people are hearing from them. I mean, people are not hearing a in-depth discussion of real ideas. What they're hearing from is these 30-second hit ads that are just flooding the marketplace, and I think, frankly, overloading the discourse.
And the problem with corporations being people, and this will be my last point, is that they have unlimited money. It's one thing when rich people give to a certain candidate, whether it's Jim McCarthy, Newt Gingrich, or whatever. When a corporation comes in, my God, they're going to spend $8 billion in this campaign overall for all the different campaigns, presidential and otherwise. Chamber of Commerce last time around in 2010 came in with over $31 million. It has such an enormous impact. I think until we end corporate personhood and do public financing of elections, they are obviously going to buy all of our politicians because it pays off. It's a great investment to buy a senator. It's one study said that it gave a return of 22,000% when it came to the tax holiday in 2004. So that's why they do it. It's logical. That's why we've got to stop it. I think the way to stop it is Wolfpack, a pack that we've created to fight for a constitutional amendment on this issue. All right, now when we return, Norman Solomon is going to talk to us about a financial transaction tax. Could that help in a couple of different ways if we just tax the banks a little bit? We'll talk about it when we come back. Now we're back on the point with Democratic congressional candidate Norman Solomon. He's going to talk about a financial transaction tax. This is actually a really interesting idea. Let's watch.
Hi, I'm Norman Solomon. I'm running for Congress in the new North Coast District in California. Thanks for having me on the program. The point today for me is that we've got to challenge corporate power. That's in the Occupy movement, and also we've got to occupy Congress. Our race here, and you can find me on the web at solomonforcongress.com, is grassroots. We have more than 600 volunteers. We have more than 3,000 people who've given us money. We're not taking any corporate PAC money. That's essential to this race. We're not taking corporate dollars, and we need your help. I'm supporting a 0.25% transaction tax on Wall Street, which would yield $150 billion a year as part of a full employment package. We need a Green New Deal, and it can be done if we organize effectively. John Conyers in Congress, who I've worked with as co-chair on the Healthcare Not Warfare campaign, has a bill that would mean full employment in this country and also taxing Wall Street finally so that they're not having a free ride and ripping off the rest of the country. I am a loyal Democrat, which means I believe you fight the Republican agenda, including when it's being pushed by our Democratic president. I support Obama when he's correct. I fight him when he's wrong. He's wrong on throwing habeas corpus under the bus, deferring to Wall Street, having wars continue around the world. That's not the future that we need for our country. So I invite you to be part of our campaign, solomonforcongress.com on the web. Love to work with you. Thanks a lot.
All right, Rick, what do you think?
Listen, I mean, I have no allergic reaction to putting this tax on. I kind of like it. They've been trying it for years. Here's the problem. as much as I would like to tax Wall Street, especially for doing these types of speed trading, as I call it, it really doesn't work unless you get every single nation that has a strong financial center to participate. Because if you tell me as a trader that I'm gonna have to pay a quarter cent on every transaction, you know what? I'm gonna go, fine. I'm gonna get on the internet or pick up the phone and I'm gonna call London and I'm gonna do my trades there. And if that's a problem, I'm gonna go to Paris, wherever I have to go.
But Rick, one of the problems is that the developed countries try to get together to do this, to do it, and who blocked it? Tim Geithner, our Treasury Secretary.
Tim Geithner did block it, but he blocked it with a very strong assist from Great Britain. And with London as the center of the financial world today, if Tim Geithner had supported it and London went against it, it wouldn't have made a difference.
I know, but Tim Geithner could have pushed London in the right direction. Instead, he pushed the world in the wrong direction, as he always does. James, what's your sense of, like, hey, can't we just get a 0.25% from the banks and raise, by the way, $150 billion a year? You know that all of the state budget shortfalls for all the whole 50 states is only $160 billion.
I can't believe that I'm going to be the guy sitting here defending Barack Obama's Secretary of the Treasury on the panel. But yeah, let's get it.
Oh wait, it is.
Look, this is not the wrong decision. We should have an allergic reaction to this. I understand where the sentiment is coming from, and I sympathize with the idea that Wall Street is ripping off the rest of America. But here's the deal: the way to go about fixing the system is not by taxing free enterprise and reaching in and grabbing money every time I give a dollar to you or you give a dollar.
Isn't every tax a tax on free enterprise? What does that mean?
Hear me out. The solution is break up the banks, stop the bailouts, separate government and finance as much as you can. These are principles that were laid out by Republicans like John Huntsman. He's not in the race anymore, but this argument is still a live and growing part of what Republicans are talking about, what conservatives are talking about. What we don't want to do is go after prosperity. What we do want to do is go after the place where corporate power and government power come together to create something that's bad for everyone.
No, but it's not a matter of going after prosperity. It's a matter of saying, hey, you know what? We all have to pay taxes so that the government can run. Either we're going to pay it or the giant banks are going to pay it, and it lowers speculation. It's a win-win.
Can I insert a distinction? It's not about going after prosperity. It may be about going after those who prosper at the expense of those who pay for it.
But this isn't taxing specific people or specific institutions. It's taxing an activity, and that's the kind of activity that anyone can participate in. Look, Europe is going to do this.
We do that all the time, don't we?
Europe is going to do this. We'll see how Europe does. Get back to me when their economy continues to spiral down the gutter.
Oh, by the way, they spiraled down having nothing to do. Like the conservatives love to say, oh, look at the socialists in Europe. No, you know why they're spiraling down? Because Goldman Sachs came in and said, oh, I got a bunch of great loans to sell you. Don't worry, they'll be fine. Oops, they exploded on you.
It could even be both.
No, because they were doing fine until 2007. Nomi Prince is a great thesis on this. They were until actually our banks came in and said, look at how we got bailed out. Don't worry, you're going to get bailed out. Keep taking more money.
Right.
So Jessica, thoughts on this?
So Rick is exactly right. You need global buy-in. And the problem is if you don't have that, it's not going to work. It's very difficult to get a consensus in our city council, in our state, on a federal level. So it's very difficult to get a consensus internationally. I think this would be a good move. The studies I've seen show that it really wouldn't affect long-term investors. It would affect what Rick says, the high-speed traders. And
isn't that a good thing?
Yeah, so it would. From what I've seen, it would decrease speculation. It would decrease volatility. That's something, as we've seen in California, we desperately need, where we have this boom and bust economy. So I think it would be a great idea. Whether it's going to happen or not, I'm a cynic.
The economy moves at 21st century speeds. If you put the brakes on that, we're going to be worse off.
Well, the reason I'm a cynic is because of the first point that we discussed, which is that the politicians are controlled by whoever donates the most, and the banks donate a ton of money. So that's why it's not going to work. But if we had an actual democracy that worked, if you tell the American people, hey, I can tax you more, right? Or I can cut spending on Social Security or Medicare, or I could do 0.25% tax on financial transactions, it's the biggest no-brainer in the world. It would win 99-1. But apparently we don't live in a democracy.
And the other problem, if I could, James, it's true. The economy does move at 21st century speed. But this becomes a problem. Speed trading is not really a significant part of our economy. It's not putting people to work, except for maybe a few more Wall Street people. It's not really having a positive impact on our overall economy. It's having a really good impact on the people clever enough to read those charts and those graphs and buy and sell 17 times within the course of a day. It's not helping the economy. It's helping their economy.
Well, if it's not helping the economy, then why is it making so much money?
For who? It's helping their economy. If you're a speed trader, it's good for you.
Just because Mitt Romney and Lloyd Blankfein made a lot of money doesn't mean it helped our economy. Our economy is in disastrous shape.
The international economy is completely interlocked. They don't live in a little lockbox where the money just goes up and down and never escapes. It goes into government, it comes back the other way. The doors are open.
But that's not the issue. I agree with you. But that's not the issue. The issue of speed trading it has nothing to do with that. And Cenk's point is exactly right. There's a lot of people who not only made enormous sums of money as we marched off the cliff, there's a lot of people today making enormous sums of money as we swim down below in the ocean. So I'm not sure that you can lump those people and say this is the economy. This is a very small part, dare I say the 1% part, who is doing very well, no matter how the economy is faring.
Well, look, it might be good to expand that percent, whatever it is. I think it's greater than 1. But I think there is a point that does need to be made, which is, look, the beating heart of the American economy is the entrepreneurial spirit. It's not these super fast transactions where giant sums of money are moving back and forth at the speed of light. I don't think that a speculation tax is the right move to make. I think calling it a speculation is somewhat pejorative. But I do think it's important to remember that the thing that generates jobs in this country, the thing that creates commercial dynamism, that gives us the kind of life that we're used to, it comes from the entrepreneurial spirit. It doesn't come from this.
I have no problem with the spirit. I really don't. I don't believe that this is representative of the American entrepreneurial spirit. The American entrepreneurial spirit makes a risky investment in something that it believes in. It builds something. It produces a good, a service. It gives us something.
Tangible stuff.
Yeah.
Look, there's
it doesn't
value
just
in the
trade money.
financial. There's value in the financial industry, and obviously money flows to the companies that are better able to succeed. We've been through all that. We all understand that, right? But at the same time, it's not the kind of disproportionate value that they're getting. Right. I mean, teachers get next to nothing compared to the bankers. And what do the bankers do? They sit there and they go, I'll go here and I'll go there. And in fact, they'll do it at such great speed, I'll have this absurd, unnatural advantage. It is not proportional to what they're actually contributing to the economy at all. So can we raise their taxes by 0.25%? My point is, hell yes we can. And we should. When we come back, slut shaming. What is that? We will discuss and perhaps debate. Now, our third point comes from a video from a 13-year-old girl on YouTube. This has actually gotten a tremendous number of hits on YouTube. Her name apparently is Astrorice, at least that's what she's going by. She has a very interesting and provocative point about slut shaming.
Today's topic, slut shaming, and why it's wrong. So first off, what the hell is slut shaming? Slut shaming is the unfortunate phenomenon in which people degrade or mock a woman because she dresses in tight or revealing clothing, enjoys sex, has sex a lot, or may even just be rumored to participate in sexual activity. The message that slut shaming sends to women is that sex is bad, having sex with more than one person is horrible, and everyone will hate you for having sex at all. That message is complete and utter, excuse my French, bullshit. Anyway, if you've given your consent, if you're emotionally and physically ready for it, if you're using proper protection, and if you feel safe and comfortable with your partner, then sex is good. It is nobody's business but your own how many people you're having sex with or how much sex you have. And you don't deserve to be hated on for being sexually active with more than one partner. Slut shaming also contributes to rape culture / rape supportive culture. Rape culture is a culture in which sexual violence against women is commonplace, and in which prevalent attitudes tolerate said sexual violence. Slut shaming contributes to this by sending the message that it's okay to rape sluts, because by having too much sex or dressing in tight and revealing clothing, they're somehow asking for it. Rape is caused by rapists, misogyny, structural violence, and institutional tolerance. Not by women's clothing or makeup, not the way she talks or walks, not by her drinking, not by her not being careful enough, and certainly not by her being a slut. I'm noticing a lot of other girls my age starting to say it, and it just shocks me every time. How could they use such offensive language in such a casual manner? It's like they don't even know the meaning behind their words. And that's the thing, they don't know.
You know, that's a Fascinating video, and I've got a lot of different conflicting thoughts on it. But first, let me start with you, James, on this concept of slut shaming. Is that something that is prevalent, you think? Is it something we should be concerned about? Or is she making a little bit too much of it?
I feel so old. This term was not around when I was in school. It was really a different world. Kids were not quite as sexually active in the way they are now, even just back then. And, this isn't the dark ages, this was the 90s. Also, kids didn't speak quite as much like lawyers. I mean, I respect the fact that this girl's 13. She's clearly super smart. I'm, down with the nerdery. That's awesome. But I would much prefer the kind of attitude that says, I don't give a damn about my bad reputation, than the attitude that says, let's look up chapter and verse here and sort of do the human resources routine about sort of what good behavior and what bad behavior is. I think the key point that needs to be made here, though, is when Astrorice or whoever she may be said, hey, if you're emotionally and physically ready for sex, then it doesn't matter sort of who you are, how old you are, go for it. And that's, fine. That's a nice attitude to have. But the fact of the matter is, judging by, say, the amount of prescription drugs that are flowing around in this country right now, judging by how they're getting increasingly prescribed to younger and younger people, there are a lot of kids out there who are just not emotionally stable. I'm sorry. And when you look at the way that's going down and you look at the way the sex is going around among young kids, I think you got to put 2 and 2 together there and take a step back and say, wait a minute.
Yeah, I'm not sure there's a more pro-sex person in the country than me, but I'm going to be Grandpa Cenk here. The fact that she was 13 made me incredibly uncomfortable. Did you guys get that sense?
I mean, she's very young, but she is very articulate. I mean, she's a precocious 13-year-old. But I think, frankly, that girls and young women, and she is kind of straddling that line, so to speak, don't really have the luxury of not caring. I mean, this is an issue that you don't hear a lot of people talking about the equivalent of slut shaming for boys. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of discussion about girls, and the psychological studies that I've seen show that once you're labeled a slut, that really stays with you for the rest of your life. Whether it's dress, which doesn't necessarily indicate sexual promiscuity, but is what you're conveying to the world, or true sexual promiscuity, that it's much more harmful to women, and I think it stays with them much longer. A guy is a hero, a girl is a slut.
Look, there's never been a bigger disparity on any issue between the two sexes, no question. I've been called a slut a couple of times in my life, and I was enormously complimented by it. Right? But
I would not feel the same
way. Of course.
I think there's even movement here, though. I mean, another word that wasn't thrown around very much when I was in high school was man whore, and now I'm starting to hear,
but again, I would take that as a compliment.
I take your point, but again, I think things are changing a little bit, and I think I think that boys have it a little different now than they did when we lived in a more masculine and in some ways hyper-masculine culture.
I don't think that boys are more stigmatized, but I do think girls are less stigmatized these days. What do you think about that, Jessica?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure. I think it is, as we said, it's uncomfortable that a 13-year-old is talking so openly about this. I think that and we're roughly the same age, but I didn't hear a lot of these conversations when I was her age. So I think that kids actually are hypersexualized, and I don't think that's a great thing. And I think that, again, it falls very heavily on females. All of the burdens and downsides of either being perceived to be hypersexual or actually being so. And there may be some movement, but we're not anywhere near 50-50 on this real and perceptive issue.
Right. And Rick, I always found calling a girl a slut the most counterproductive thing a guy could do.
Exactly.
It makes no sense.
Because even if he didn't say it to her, it might get back to her and you were dead.
Right, then you had no chance with her. She's like, okay, I'll prove I'm not a slut. I won't sleep with you.
That's
and you're like, it's like the dumbest move in the history of mankind.
Right.
But there's something apparently appealing to some knuckleheads because it's happened throughout time. And what is she right about this rape culture? I thought that comment was. I honestly, I thought it was too liberal for me. I mean, I don't know if it's true, but there is something where guys always want to be like, oh, she's a slut.
Well, I mean, I think that is, frankly, a knee-jerk and ignorant label, and I think it's stupid not only because you're not going to, be lucky with this girl, but because it's just offensive. But I mean, I think that it is, to say that this leads to rape, I mean, I think rape is about power. I don't think it's about sex. We see very young people being raped. We see very, very old people being raped. They are not, objectively appealing, and they're not being raped because they are aesthetically, putting themselves out there or wearing bikinis. They're being raped because of a very offensive act that has to deal with power.
Well, and there's a personal component here too, which I think can get lost when this turns into sort of the politics of sexual power. Is I think in a lot of these cases, girls calling each other sluts or guys sort of having a date rape moment. These are human beings with particular personal lives. They've got complicated relationships. There's envy. There's jealousy. Why do people insult people? Is it because they feel like being jerks that day, or because they're trying to stigmatize a group? I think more often it's because they know that person and they want to hurt them.
And by the way, the guys who call the women sluts are usually guys who are not hooking up with those girls.
That's right.
And so they're bitter and they're jealous a lot of times.
What got my attention watching it, for the first time, her age thing. Now, I have to tell you, I tried to watch the tape as if I didn't know her age. And you have to admit, this is a very bright girl, and maybe we shouldn't be looking at that. But where she kind of jumped the line was when she went into the rape thing. And I thought, maybe this is the issue of her age. Maybe if she was a little older, she wouldn't have put those together. Mm-hmm. So maybe she's trying a little too hard to be a little too precocious and went too far.
I like her point that you can wear something, very kind of inappropriate or provocative, and you're still not asking for it. But I think you're right that it was definitely a boundary that she crossed, and I think those are two incredibly distinct things. One, reputation is basically a whore or a slut, and another, talking about a very violent crime.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was thinking, what if she was my daughter? And I would have two different feelings. One is like, I'm so proud of her for being so smart and involved and active, et cetera, and being able to do this initiative, et cetera. On the other hand, I'm like, no, wait, you're not having sex, are you? What is all the talk about, like, oh, it's okay, whatever you want. No, it's okay when, as a parent, I would say 18. In reality, I think probably 16, but not at 13, right?
I'm on the other side of it. My kids are grown up and married now. They are who they are. Mm-hmm. It's the hardest thing to understand, but you teach them whatever you think, and they're going to decide for themselves what they think.
Oh, yeah, especially her, no question. She's, so bright for a 13-year-old. And we're having a whole conversation about her points, which is a tremendous credit to her. But one more thing. Now, there's this thing called Slut Walks, where they try to empower the word and dress up more provocatively and say, hey, it's okay, we can dress up any way we like, and et cetera. What do you think? Jessica, does it empower the word, or are they going a bit too far?
So the word, I wish that these young women who were marching would know that the word actually had its origins, as I understand, from unclean, meaning dirty, not promiscuous, people who worked in kitchens centuries ago. Is it on the top of my agenda that we need to reclaim the word slut? No, it really isn't. I think that women
it's a little further down the list there.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of serious issues that women face in the country. If you look at the composition of the Senate, if you look at people who are running businesses in public office, reclaiming a word that has been misused and misappropriated, no, not in my top 10.
Okay.
There's
what I heard about
it.
Senator, oh wait, never mind.
There's a funny thing about it, though. I'm not surprised that a group of people are now saying, no, we need to take back slut. We need to make slut an honorific, right? We need to valorize sluttiness. It's not that surprising, because when you push down the clamp on the nanny sort of regulatory apparatus, use that word.
Going back to making a libertarian point.
What we see that happens is then people zing out way in the other direction and say, okay, if I'm going to be stuck in this sort of nanny universe, and this happens on college campuses, if I'm stuck in this world where I'm ruled by bureaucrats, as soon as the lights go out and it's after hours, I'm going to run off campus, I'm going to funnel booze, I'm going to get as drunk as I can, and I'm going to have sex, damn it.
But wait, I grew up in a Republican administration and we did that, so what's the point?
Well, I think the point is that it's worsening, that when you look at what's going on college campuses and you look at the way that administrators want to treat college students like children and micromanage their lives and make sure that everyone's respected, no one says anything that offends anyone else, create this oppressively regulated environment. The minute that they can run for the exits, they do, and they act out.
I think that varies widely across college campuses. I do agree that there's something to, making a situation so oppressive that you're just going to force someone to act out. But I think the educational system in the country has huge variations.
Right, and there are a lot of colleges where women report sexual harassment or sexual assault sometimes even, and they're largely ignored. So the problem exists on both sides. And finally, I want to empower the idea of dirty, swarthy Turks. I feel like, it's not the right way to go. I think this could be a positive term. I'm going to do a swarthy walk.
We'll join you.
You do it now?
Yes.
All right, now my final point for the week is about SOPA, the Stop Online Piracy Act. Now, all week on the Young Turks, we've talked about what a disaster it is. It can basically shut down any website. The government can shut it down, so it would be basically censorship. Any private entity can do it. In fact, they can do it and then get what they call vigilante immunity. Say, you know what? I shut down a couple of wrong websites. So what? I thought they had links to pirated material. It's a disaster for the internet, and the internet struck back this week. Wikipedia, Reddit, Boing, so many different websites. In fact, up to 75,000 websites went black on Wednesday to protest SOPA. And guess what happened? Something amazing. Some of the Republicans and Democrats started backpedaling. A number of senators and congressmen said, oh my God, yeah, did I say I was for SOPA? No, of course I'm against SOPA. I didn't mean it. Which you almost never see in Washington. People power actually having an effect. Now, keep it real. They also, the large tech companies have also been donating a tremendous amount, trying to fight back against the power of the media companies that donate even more to the politicians. But the fact that the people fought back in any way and began to have some success was wonderful to see. Now, it's not gone yet, but it has been stalled in the House. Now, Eric Cantor is saying we will not bring it up in this version. Of course, in the Senate, unfortunately, it is progressing, with great alacrity because Senator Reid, of course, is buddies with former Senator Dodd from Connecticut, who is now representing the Motion Picture Association of America and saying, oh, yeah, we'd like to knock off a couple of our competitors. Senator Reid, Senator Leahy, can you help us out? Of course they can, especially because Senator Leahy, his top 3 donors are lawyers, lobbyists, and the motion picture people, the entertainment industry, right? And unfortunately, that's how our politics works oftentimes, but perhaps not this time. Now, I want to thank everybody here on the panel, James Poulos, of course, with the Daily Caller, Jessica Levinson at Loyola Law School, and also blogs not only at Huffington Post, but at KCET as well, right. And Rick Ungar with Forbes and Washington Monthly. You guys have been great. And I want to thank, of course, all the people who sent in their points, Katrina Vanden Heuvel from The Nation, and Norman Solomon running for Congress in California, and of course Astrorice, who we got off the internet, a bright young girl we're all kind of proud of in a sense. So thank you all, and we'll see you next week.